anniversary of Juneteenth, praising the date as marking both the end of slavery in America and the unfulfilled work of making the nation's promise of equality real for all. Biden highlighted the
There's
event of June 19th,
some
1865, when
technical
the Army
issues.
arrived in Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing the last remaining enslaved people in the former Confederacy over 2 years after it was initially issued. Biden said, quote, "Today we recognize that Juneteenth not only marks the end of America's original sin of slavery, but also the beginning of the work at the heart and soul of our nation, making the promise of America real for every American." Mr. Biden also pointed to economic progress made by Black Americans during his administration, noting record job and health insurance numbers, as well as fast business ownership growth. For AURN News, I'm Jamie Jackson.
Choice.
I don't know what's up. We'll just, cut it off at whatever time we start. We'll just close out at 6 because I know you got obligations if you can hang with me that long. I'm not sure what's going
Yeah, it's no problem.
on. Okay, we're on. That's what the notice says. All right. Well, I'm going to say welcome to Express Yourself. This is Reuben Blackwell, your weekly radio talk show host on Choice FM 92, the People Station. And today I'm really honored to have an enterprising, brilliant young leader in our presence tonight, Dr. Earic Bonner. He is an accomplished physician and the chief medical officer at OIC. That's how I know him. He's a great guy. And he's going to be here and talk with us for the next few minutes about all things health. And we're going to open up the lines for you to be able to call in and talk with him yourself in case you have any questions that you have. So before we get going all the way, Dr. Bonner, I would love for you to just introduce yourself. Give us a little background about who you are, where you come from.
My name is Earic Bonner. I'm from Tyner, North Carolina, Chowan County, just outside of Edenton. I went to Livingstone College for undergrad and Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee for medical school, two of our HBCUs. And I'd like to say happy Juneteenth to everybody. Currently, I reside in Rocky Mount and have been the chief medical officer at OIC for the last 2.5 years. Time is flying. And so happy to be here and happy to answer any questions that you all have about health and wellness.
Well, Earic, we met during the COVID crisis, and we had an all-staff meeting at that time, and you're with another large healthcare operation, and you gave us information about COVID, and you really started shifting our thinking at OIC about how we can secure medical safety and protection for Black and poor communities in particular, for everyone, because if you love healthcare and you love people, you love everyone. But we also know that OIC is called into places and with people that other people underestimate or overlook and perhaps don't place high value. But what I have appreciated about working with you is that you really have the community's mind on your heart. Can you just give me, before we get into the technical stuff, can you give me a little information, give our community some information about who you are? What inspired you to go into medicine?
I grew up with a mom who's a registered nurse, been around healthcare my whole life. When I was a kid, we catch the bus to the hospital after school and wait for her to get off. And so it's kind of been second nature of what I wanted to do since I was probably 6 years old. Eliminating health disparities, taking care of the populations that you were talking about, the Black, brown, poor community, has always been my passion. Very interested and dedicated to making sure that we show the rest of the country how to do a good job taking care of these populations, especially in Eastern North Carolina. and around the world, wherever, these populations are. It's important to me to make sure everyone has access to really good healthcare. In a country that has this much wealth, that shouldn't still be something that we talk about in 2024. But since it is, here we are. And so any opportunities to have conversations like this, or to be able to meet people where they are, is an important passion of mine that I know we have talked about many times and that we share.
And the statistics say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the statistics say that for the most part, Black people do well in their recovery and in their adherence and in their accessibility to good health care. That when they have Black providers in their lives, interacting with them, they tend to do better physically. Do you see that? Or can you verify if that's true or not?
Yeah, it's definitely true. Race concordance, or having the same race as a doc, for Black and brown people has been shown to improve outcomes, improve, people taking their medicine the way they're supposed to, all those kind of things. One of the interesting things that has come out recently about the Black community specifically is our community does better even having a Black physician in that community, even if that's not your doctor.
Wow.
Which is crazy, but we see how just the influence of having Black communities who have access to Black physicians can make a huge difference. And that's where the OICs and groups like OIC have improved the health and wellness of communities for generations.
Well, we certainly see it making a difference here in our community, and thank you so much for choosing to serve here in Rocky Mount and choosing to be with OIC. That says a lot about who you are, sir. And I can just say to our listening audience, you're talking to one of the most brilliant, enterprising young men, diverse in his perspective. We'll talk about some other personal stuff a little bit later on. As you feel comfortable, I'm not going to tell the whole story myself, but I'm just so impressed. I'm a young man from Eastern North Carolina, went to school, chose to come back home to the same area that he grew up in. And even today, even as he practices here in Rocky Mount and in other places east of Rocky Mount, he still takes care of people at home. I love that commitment. You never, ever leave home. You got folk in your heart that you have intended to be a blessing to, because I'm sure they blessed you and supported you growing up. So I love that give back, invest back kind of spirit. Well, we're going to open up the phone lines for you to talk with Dr. Bonner yourself. Call us at 252-937-7400 or 919-872-9210. Happy Juneteenth. As Dr. Bonner's already stated, I should have led with that. I'm all Juneteenth down. I got my dashiki, I got my beads on, and I can't do nothing about the gray, but I didn't shave. What about that? But I got a freedom state of mind. I live in that. I don't need a holiday to tell me I'm free. So give us a call. Give us a call, please. Let's talk, Dr. Bonner, about what we are seeing now. Summertime is about to officially arrive tomorrow, I believe. Is that right? The summer equinox is tomorrow, and summertime officially is here. There's a dome of heat all over the entire country. So whether you're in Texas or whether you're in Michigan, it is hot everywhere. And Dr. Bonner, I believe you're in the Midwest or close to it, and it's as hot there as it is here. What are some things health-wise we need to be careful about in weather like this?
Please stay hydrated. That's number one.
What does that mean? Pepsi?
Yeah, I was gonna say, drinking your water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put the Cokes down, right?
Yeah, the Pepsi, the Coke, the Gatorade, the juice, that kind of stuff, kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit. But water is going to be important in this heat. If you have things you need to do outside, your yard work, your morning jog, run, evening, whatever, try to do it close to either dawn or dusk when it gets cooler and you're not out in the direct heat. Just being smart about things, listening to your body. But the most important thing is staying hydrated and making sure that you aren't just out there too long without something to drink, because that's when we see the heat strokes. We see the dehydration, the kidney disease, those kind of things.
So if you are out and about and moving and busy and, moving from the air conditioner to the sidewalk to the store or back out again doing some yard work, or, maybe you didn't have the day off and just had to be outside and working. What should a person know if something's happening physically to their body? What should tip them off that, hey, maybe I need to stop what I'm doing right now because I'm not feeling quite right? What
Yeah,
are the signs to look for?
it's a good question. Dizziness, chest pain, or shortness of breath is always something to listen to. Don't ignore that. If your urine is getting really dark, that is a sign of dehydration, and need some water. If you're having that cramping, not feeling well, probably going to need some IV fluids. And so you may want to talk to your doctor or make a trip over to your closest urgent care. But that's the most important thing. If you're going to be outside and have to be outside, sunscreen is important regardless of your skin color.
Okay.
It's important for all of us. And so the SPF number, the higher that number is, the more sun blocking it's going to do. So look for your SPF 50s, 100 if you can find it. But that's always going to be a good thing. Wearing a hat, making sure that you have some, cool water with you. Any of those things can try to keep this heat as safe as possible.
Please pay attention to that. Don't try to tough it out and be strong and make it, to the next 30 minutes, the next hour, because you don't know the tipping point in your own body. So if you're starting to experience any of these presentations or symptoms that Dr. Bonner just outlined, please take care of yourself and get somewhere cool, sit down, drink something, water, not soda, please, and something not sugar laden. And get somewhere safe. So we've come out of a pretty aggressive flu season and saw, a lot of manifestations of different strains of viruses. It's summertime now. Old folks, or people used to say, old folks said, I don't know if they said it or not, that heat kills things, but sometimes things incubate in the heat too. Is that a both and? What do we need to look out for in terms of infectious diseases or something that can be easily transmitted? What are we looking out for this summer?
Pre-COVID, we didn't really see flu in the summer very often. Flu was very seasonal, very winter, fall, winter, early spring type of virus. The pandemic has kind of flipped that on its head a bit. And so we have seen flu the last couple summers. We've seen some RSV in the summers. We've also still seen COVID in the summer. The other viruses that have always been there, the cold viruses like parainfluenza, and some of those are still getting around too. So the important thing to think about is, one, your social distancing. If you're going to be in large crowds or that kind of thing, it's okay to still wear a mask, especially if you are over the age of 65, if you have lung disease, if you're, morbidly obese, any kidney disease or other chronic illnesses, make sure you protect yourself. As far as if you get a virus, call your doc, get tested, know what you're dealing with. You still have access to Paxlovid for COVID, for Tamiflu if it is the flu. A lot of the other viruses, you kind of have to tough it out, but it's at least good to know that you don't have one of those two that can be treated early on. So there's nothing wrong with seeking care if you're not feeling well, especially if you have a fever or any other issues. So take care of yourself this summer. We're not out of the woods with all these viruses yet. And as we get into the fall in September, October, it's going to be time for your flu shot for the year. It's going to be time for the COVID booster. If you're over 60, consider the RSV shot. if you didn't get it this past year. And if you're over 65, your pneumonia vaccine if you've never had one.
Okay. Points to remember. So there is no, is there a new COVID vaccine now, or are you saying that you wait until the fall before that's presented?
Yeah, and so the COVID vaccine now is going to be treated a lot like a flu shot. It's going to be updated every fall.
Okay.
And so the 2024 version of the COVID vaccine is not available yet. It should be available in hopefully 2 months, maybe 3. Okay. But by August, September, October, you'll start seeing signs at the pharmacies. Usually they get them first, and they're the first ones to start marketing and advertising. But please talk to your physician about which shot is right for you. We've gotten to the point now where there are a few different COVID shots available. And so know which one or which ones are recommended.
So summertime is also a tough time of year, I think, for people living with autoimmune diseases. Is that correct? Like lupus and others. If a person, and I'm really amazed at the number of Black women in particular that I know that are just in my immediate circle of influence that are dear to my heart, that have been affected or inflicted with lupus. How does that express itself, and why is summertime a rough time?
Yeah, it's near and dear to my heart too. I have several aunts that have lupus. And some of those autoimmune diseases like lupus and even sarcoidosis, rheumatoid arthritis, some of those things are more likely to affect older people, women, Black women in particular with lupus, like you mentioned. The summertime, there's heat, there's typically a little bit of dehydration, there's more moving around and going to the beaches and getting out, typically exposure to more and different people. And that always puts someone at risk who's going to have those things. Sometimes with the autoimmune disease, it doesn't really show itself until something happens that stresses your body. And that's when you kind of find out you have it. And so we'll see people sometime who they get COVID, and then all of a sudden they're starting to have issues associated with lupus or sarcoidosis or something like that. Other viruses also, but it can be precipitated sometimes by illnesses that pop up this time of year.
Technically, what exactly is the difference between lupus and sarcoidosis? Sarcoidosis is internal. Is lupus internal as well as external?
It depends. You can just have something like a discoid lupus, which only affects the skin, but then you can have it other places as well. Lupus is more of a group of different things going on. A lot of times people with lupus will have a rash and joint pain and labs that indicate lupus. They'll usually have multiple things going on. Sarcoid, the most common forms when most of us think of sarcoid are typically with the lungs. They'll have a lot of lymph node swelling, for lack of a better word, but they'll have lymph nodes that you can see on their chest x-ray in the lungs. Sometimes there'll be some shortness of breath, coughing, that kind of thing that can lead to that. But there are also other forms of sarcoid that can affect other parts of the body that are a little bit more rare. Even things like neurosarcoid that can be brain issues. But things like neurosarcoid, I've only seen a handful of times in my career. They don't happen as often.
So in the, again, if a person is feeling a certain type of way, what would pique you to say, let me get myself checked out? The reason I say that, Dr. Bonner, and you know better than anyone, is that sometimes when you are making it on your own and you're doing whatever you have to do to survive, and especially if you're in a position where you're caring for other people, children or elder parents, or siblings or whatever it is, whoever your village is that you're responsible for, we have a tendency, especially if we're Black, especially if we're men too, men as well as women, we have a tendency to, try the home remedies or ignore things. I think that might be, I'll say Reuben's problem, is I ignore what's in front of me and I, say, well, I can just get through this with that instead of being proactive and finding myself in a position where I can talk with a professional like you, that knows about me and knows about where I come from and what constitutes me and is culturally aware. So you know how to, give your medical advice in a manner that I might be able to receive. What would I feel
Yeah.
if I was a person that might have lupus or sarcoidosis?
It's tough. They're not those type of things. Autoimmune things aren't as straightforward as like a diabetes or hypertension. They can present with dozens of different types of presentations, different types of symptoms. We used to joke around in medical school, we were taking exams. If lupus is an answer choice, it's probably the right answer because it can do just about anything.
Anything. Wow.
And so I would say one of the focuses that we have to shift in our community is away from the going to the doctor when I don't feel well and to the, hey, I'm going to go once a year, twice a year, or whatever is recommended to try to avoid these kind of things. Because catching it early is really important. And I'll give an example. I've had a couple of patients in the last year or two that I've seen that have come in and been incredibly excited because they were exercising, they were eating better, and they were losing weight. And the more that we were talking, the more I'm like, hey, I noticed you're exercising, but going for your little walk after dinner, you shouldn't have lost 25 pounds in these last couple of months. So let's take a little bit more of a look. And we found things like early cancers and things like that that were really what was causing the weight loss, but they didn't have any other symptoms. Sometimes that can be something like a lupus that can be causing the weight loss. And so my advice is to go to the doc when you feel well, and be honest, tell them exactly how you're feeling, what's been going on, even those little things that you don't think matter. That's probably the most important thing because you just never know what may spur a thought. And then you start going more into that and you can find some things that you may not have even recognized or may not have had bad symptoms or made you not feel well for years. And by that time, it probably would have been too late.
And so I love what you're saying, especially, and I'm just going to speak to the folk who live in Rocky Mount, you shouldn't be thinking about your health only when things are out of sync and out of sorts. And what Dr. Bonner just very plainly and clearly stated, I just would love to encourage and support. That's why OIC has opened up so many locations, in neighborhoods where most of our folk might live, or at least a great number, so that we're accessible to you and that we bring quality care to you. We got to start taking care in advance of our health. One of the things, Dr. Bonner, that in every doctor's office or health environment that you go in, and you're asked to fill out documentation, and everyone always asks about family history. Why is it important to know what has happened in family members around you? What is the point of knowing who had what when, especially if it's not you and if it's not
you? Genetics are a powerful thing. You cannot exercise and out eat your genetics. It doesn't mean that something's going to happen to you just because it happened to other people in your family.
Right.
But it does mean that it's a pretty decent chance that we can predict some things based on what we know about your gene pool. And especially in our community where there are things that affect us because of the legacy of slavery, because of historic things that have happened in this country, when you are forthcoming with some of that information, I said it can help us to predict when you may need to start getting colonoscopies to look for colon cancer, when you may need to start getting mammograms, how often we may need to see you to check your blood pressure, whether or not we should treat your sugars before you develop diabetes. If we start seeing signs or symptoms or things showing up in your blood work, all of those things are based on how we assess risk. And a lot of how we assess risk is based on your family history, because our goal is to prevent you from having those problems that some of your family members have gone through.
You know, a sure sign of aging is that when a person gets together with people in their age group and older, you know, let's hear what you talk about. Well, I've noticed, you know, I'm not going to say how many decades I've been around, but it's more than a few. But, you know, people have a tendency, you get in a group, well, you know, I got this little knee hurt. You know, I woke up this morning and I don't know what happened, but I seemed to turn the wrong way. And so the conversation ends up, you know, the first 15 to 20 minutes, the older you get, the conversation is focused around your physical well-being, you know. And wouldn't it be wonderful if, you know, we were really intentional when we are Dr. Varner's age, a powerful young man, you know, in his 30s. And you know, you make good choices, you do good things with your lifestyle, and you're aware of whatever your genetic challenges might be, you know. So by the time you get to be in your 60s, you know, and above, you know, maybe, you know, was what my dad had this, but I've been blessed because, hey, I'm keeping my weight down and I'm taking these meds or I'm exercising or I do these other things, and the conversation tends to shift. What a wonderful thing to pass down to your children, you know, good health and good health tips, you know. So it's interesting. So tell me something. You know, you talked about you know, we want to see you to check things out in case, you know, we're trying to prevent your blood sugar from getting to a point where we're concerned about diabetes and things of that, all the many things that causes. And when you look at our patient population at OIC, which I think is just reflective of our community, you know, I think our number one diagnosis, 1 and 2, I don't know which one is higher than the other, but they're tracking close together, are diabetes and hypertension. Can we talk about, you know, are you seeing more of that, or you seeing manifestations of it? Is it happening younger or later, or all stages, all phases? What do you think? What are your thoughts around that?
Both. We're seeing it earlier, but we're also seeing people live longer. So we're seeing more people who develop it as they age. We're seeing so many more children who are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes because they're so overweight. And a lot of that can be attributed to our fast-paced lifestyle these days. There's more eating out. There's a lot less, you know, dinner at home at 7 p.m. around the table, just because, you know, that's kind of where we are at this stage in history. We have started to see people take a little bit more of a active role in trying to choose healthy choices in restaurants. We're seeing, you know, Black-owned juice bars and smoothie shops, even around Rocky Mount. You know, that didn't exist 10 years ago. We're seeing, you know, even the big box places like the Paneras and the Smoothie Kings and places like that try to take a more active approach. We're seeing Wendy's start to do more salads and that kind of thing. And so I think there is a little bit of effort, but one of the issues that we have is healthy food costs more.
Yeah.
And in an era of inflation and some of the things that people are feeling in their wallets and their pocketbooks, it's always going to be easier to grab the less healthy thing and cheaper to grab the less healthy thing. And so I think as physicians and as a health system, a part of the onus on us is not only to treat those things, but also to try to help people to know, okay, this is what I should be eating, shouldn't be eating. These are things that I should try to focus on even if that's just drinking more water or whatever other things that we can do. And I know that, growing up in Eastern North Carolina, that's a struggle for me too. I grew up on a hog farm, and healthy eating was not always what we thought about, even though there were vegetables at every meal.
Yeah.
If it's smothered with pork, then that's probably not always the best thing. So we're all learning together.
Yeah. And it's Juneteenth, so I had fat back today.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a part of our culture.
It's part of what we do. You just can't eat it every day.
Right.
You can't eat it every week, And a tip for the listener. So I soak mine and rinse it off several times, and then I bake it. But I don't fry it. I bake it in that way. I put it on a little rack and let the grease drop into the pan. So, that
those kind of things are kind of what I mean. I think people are actively trying to make good choices and do better with, what we have and what we were taught, and still holding on to some of the cultural things that we enjoy.
Yeah, because that's important. We don't want to forget culture. We just have to find ways to not be killed by it, and maybe shift it, change it, so that we can preserve the intention, maybe some of the practices, but in a healthier, more contemporary manner. So talk to us about, the primary issue. Well, is there a connector? Is there a connector between weight control, diabetes, and hypertension? And are you seeing that if a person has one of those presentations, I'll say, out of control weight, which could lead to high blood sugar, persistently high, and what does that do in your body? Which also could lead to manifestations of hypertension, which causes your heart to work a little bit harder. Why do we need to be concerned about all that?
Well, the easy part is why we need to be concerned about all that. That is because I'll start with high blood pressure. Hypertension or high blood pressure is the pressure inside your arteries. And when you think about a pipe, if the pressure is too high in that pipe, eventually that pipe is going to burst. And so when you have to think about your kidneys, your eyes, your brain, your heart, all of these organs and important parts of your body that are honestly a little bit fragile, that high pressure damages those parts of the body. And so when you have that high blood pressure, you see the kidney disease, you see the heart start to get bigger, which is not a good thing. You see sometimes the blood vessels in the brain start to bulge. That's what aneurysms are. All of those things can happen because of that high blood pressure. As far as the diabetes, the sugar damages those same blood vessels. And so when you have the damage from the sugar and then you add on the high pressure, then you can start to see how it doesn't take a whole lot for you to get the damage even quicker. And that's where the two things together can cause so many problems. And diabetes will also damage your nerves and your blood vessels, even outside of those important places. And that's why you'll see people get the ulcers on their feet, or the numbness and tingling and neuropathy in their legs or hands, or those kind of things. And unfortunately, you can see people get infections because they don't have good blood flow. And bacteria, just like any of the insects in your house, they love sugar. And so you're going to have a more friendly environment for bacteria to grow in any places when your sugar is high. So you end up having a higher risk for having to get that leg amputated, or having to go to the hospital for antibiotics, or any of those kind of things. Now to your other question, which was more so, do those things make you high risk? Yes. We talked about genetics earlier. And so genetics are the number one thing. If diabetes or hypertension run in your family, then you are going to have to work overtime. to prevent those in a way that someone who it doesn't run in their family may not have to work as hard. But the better you do with cutting out the salt, drinking plenty of water, and exercise, then the better chance you have of avoiding those things. The sugar in your blood only gets out of your blood one of two ways. Either insulin pulls it out so that it can go into your muscles and then they can use it for energy and burn it up. Or when you exercise and your heart is beating fast enough, then your muscles can pull the sugar out themselves and they don't have to wait for the insulin. And so if you get enough exercise, that is going to bring your sugar down. And that makes you not need medicine as much. And so exercise is by far the most important thing. When I have someone come in, I can tell how well we're going to do with their diabetes by how active and how much exercise they do.
Wow.
Because
Dr. Bonner, I'm going to hold you right there. Wait a minute. Did y'all hear that? That was the clearest explanation I have ever heard about why exercise reduces dependence on medication for diabetes. And also, Dr. Bonner, we have to take a break. This is so compelling, great information. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us. And we have a few more minutes of great talk with Dr. Earic Bonner, who is the Chief Medical Officer at OIC Family Medical Centers, a brilliant young man, trained right here, grew up in Eastern North Carolina, trained in Livingston and Meharry, and came back home to work with his people. And he is doing a fantastic job. We're so proud of him. Thank you for listening. We're going to take a break and pay some bills around here. For Choice FM, this is Reuben Blackwell. Thank you for tuning in and listening to Express Yourself. We'll be back. Hold on.
Choice FM is live at 5.
But it's like this, the South got something to say. That's all I got to say.
Reuben Blackwell and Express Yourself on Choice FM.
Pop's Diner, 132 South Church Street, Rocky Mount. Juicy burger, hot, delicious wing, yummy spaghetti, and the first pizza to ever be served downtown Rocky Mount. Hot, delicious pizza and more at Pop's Diner. Pop's Diner for hot dogs. Pop's Diner for lunch. Open daily from 11 till 7 p.m. City workers get the Pop's hookup. Pop's Diner. Open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Wings, pizza, burgers, spaghetti, salads, and more. Hot, fresh, and fast at Pop's downtown Rocky Mount. Open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
Get ready to feel the vibes and groove to the rhythm at the One Love Reggae Concert, Saturday, June 22nd at the Edna Boykin Cultural Center,
108 Nash Street, Wilson.
It's going to be an unforgettable night filled with music, culture, and unity. Don't miss out on the chance to witness international reggae sensation Zion Albert as he takes the stage and sets it on fire with his electrifying performance and leading us through the night with his infectious energy. Our MC, the one and only Big Alaya. Get ready to groove from the start with the soulful sounds of our opening act, Ras Medi. Tickets are available now for just $25 at Say Yum Jamaican Restaurant. Hurry, because they're selling fast. And for those last-minute decision makers, tickets will be available at the door for $30. This event is proudly sponsored by Say Yum Jamaican Restaurant. Don't miss the One Love Reggae Concert, where music unites us all. See you there. For more information, visit Say Yum Jamaican Restaurant or check us out online. One Love Reggae Concert, June 22nd, Edna Boykin Cultural Center,
108 East Nash Street in Wilson.
Tune into More Than That with Gia Peppers, live on Choice FM 92.1 every Saturday at 9 a.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by Gillette Skin Guard, helping Black men look and feel their best. Gillette, the best a man can get. Choice FM 92.1, extremely cold here, and I am with our cousin, Queen. Cousin Kira.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm great, Queen. Thank you. Now, we have listeners who are thinking about getting a new car. I know you can help us. What should they do?
Call me first, absolutely, so we can save some money. So that number is 919-275-5372. And I want to especially talk to people about credit unions because a lot of times we get the blessing of a good rate and then turn around and buy literally a little clunker car and it falls apart. And now the credit union don't like you no more because you didn't pay.
You thought that credit union was your friend. How do we recover from that, Cousin Kira? What should we do after we call you?
After they call me, even if you don't have a credit union, call me so I can maybe help you get into one. So when you do that, we're going to make sure you get a good rate. Your payment depends on the interest rate. Your interest rate depends on your credit. So when I'm telling people, call me and I help with credit, it's because I want everybody to be over 700 so you never get declined again.
All right, tell us how to reach you.
919-275-5372 or the www.askcousinkira.com.
AURN News.
President Joe Biden issued a special proclamation this week commemorating the anniversary of Juneteenth, praising the date as marking both the end of slavery in America and the unfulfilled work of making the nation's promise of equality real for all. Biden highlighted the event of June 19, 1865, when the Army arrived in Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing the last remaining enslaved people in the former Confederacy over 2 years after it was initially issued. Biden said, quote, "Today we recognize that Juneteenth not only marks the end of America's original sin of slavery, but also the beginning of the work at the heart and soul of our nation, making the promise of America real for every American." Mr. Biden also pointed to economic progress made by Black Americans during his administration, noting record job and health insurance numbers, as well as fast business ownership growth. For AURN News, I'm Jamie Jackson.
Choice FM is live at 5.
But it's like this, the South got something to say. That's all I got to say.
Reuben Blackwell and Express Yourself on Choice FM.
Well, welcome back to more of Express Yourself. This is Reuben Blackwell, your talk show host today in Choice FM, the People's Station, right here in Raleigh and in Rocky Mount. We have with us as our special guest today a fine young man who's dedicated his life to making sure that everyone gets a chance to live healthy. Dr. Earic Bonner, who is the Chief Medical Officer at OIC Family Medical Centers in Rocky Mount, but he also practices medicine throughout Eastern North Carolina and is known all over this country. He has incredible networks of brilliant physicians and healthcare providers. And Dr. Bonner, we are so happy that you're here. Thank you for joining us on Juneteenth. And I know I broke into your personal time, your celebration, so I don't want to hold you too long. I don't want your family to get a little upset with me, but we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Dr. Bonner was wrapping up our last segment, our former segment, with talking about how diabetes actually functions in your body and the pressure and hypertension, diabetes as well as hypertension, and about how the pressure, in those arteries creates an untenable environment, for your organs that are very necessary, your eyes, your heart, your internal organs, your feet, your hands. We really want and need all of these things to work together for our benefit, don't we, Dr. Bonner? And much of what you're doing really has to do not just with prescribing medications. I'm assuming what you would love to be able to do with your patients is help us to influence us to make good life choices, how we eat, how we move, how we rest. Can you talk to me a little bit about rest? Is rest that important? Is it that important?
It is. I do want to add one more point to the former segment. Please don't stop your medicine because you start exercising. I know I said that exercise helps a lot.
That's right.
So I do want to add that. But if you're on insulin, if you're on diabetes medications, talk to your physician about the fact that you're exercising more, because it may mean that they need to decrease your medicine or potentially take you off of it, depending on what dose you're on. I'm pretty fortunate. I get to take someone off of diabetes medicines usually about a couple times a month. And it's always a great visit because you get to tell people like, hey, you're doing so well, we can get you off this medicine. And that's the best part of my day. But as far as, what was your last question? wanted
No,
to make sure I didn't miss that.
about the life choices. No,
Okay.
you were hitting it right. What can we do to just preserve ourselves, so that
Okay.
we have longer lives, if the Lord wills,
Mhm.
and the time that we are able to enjoy our family, our friends, the things that are important to us.
Yeah, and so rest is important. There used to be this push to tell everybody, hey, you need to get at least 8 hours.
Yeah.
Now we know that that's not completely accurate. Everyone's different. Some people, you can give them a sleeping pill and they're still not going to sleep 8 hours a night. And so if you feel like you have enough energy to get through your day, then you'll probably get enough sleep. If you wake up and you're tired first thing in the morning and you just always are like, man, I really want to get back into bed, then that can be a sign that you're not getting restful sleep or not getting enough sleep. So make sure you talk to your doctor about that. Sleep is like your bank account. There is a such thing as sleep debt. And so if you've been burning the candle at both ends for months and you're tired all the time and you're like, I'm just going to get to this vacation, you're not going to make up months of not sleeping with a few days of sleeping. It's going to take time. And so be patient. Try to establish healthy patterns and not just, crash things like when I get to this weekend or when I get to the holiday or whenever I'm going to catch up on my sleep. Try to be consistent. Try to, like I said, get your water, have your healthy meals, exercise, enjoy time with family, friends, if that's something that's important to you. Make sure that you're taking the time away from your busy life to experience other things. Mental health is something that affects your physical health so much, and we don't usually talk about it until someone's depressed or anxious. But trying to keep your mind healthy is also important. And so find good, healthy stress relievers, try to get your rest. And like I said, take some time for you. I tell people a lot, take 2 hours a week just for you. Turn your phone off, go walk around the mall or to whatever you enjoy. Just let everybody know those 2 hours are yours. You're not available to anybody else, and try to just do something that brings you peace and joy, and schedule time for you the same way you schedule time for everybody else.
Wow, I tell you something, that is so dynamic and encouraging, and you were sort of stepping all over my toes. You're not supposed to do that to me on Juneteenth.
Yeah.
But I love that. Find your place of joy and learn how to normalize being joyful. We have, especially as people of color, we sort of, and if you like me and I stay woke and I'm unashamed, yes, I am woke and I will always be awake, until my eyes close and sleep. But sometimes the consciousness of what we have to fight against consumes our minds. And I think I love what you just said. We have to prioritize time to just shut everything down. Dr. Bonner, your physician said he's going to give you 2 hours a week. Is that what you said, or a day? 2 hours. I needed a day.
Yeah, 2 hours a week.
He said 2 hours a week. The older you get, the more time you need, Dr. Bonner. But look for that space and that place of joy. And Dr. Bonner, let's just sort of shift back over to you. The hour's about to close out. I want to give a little tribute to Juneteenth before we close out completely today's program. What brings you joy? What brings you happiness? How does a good doctor find a way to relieve all the stress of what I know you're living through? Because I know what I bring to you and what you have to deal with in this community. But how do you find your joy?
For me, it's two things. Like, family is huge. I'm from a huge family. My mom has 19 brothers and sisters. My dad has 3,000 cousins. And so it's a ton of us, and I enjoy hanging out with family. Sports is my big thing. I play basketball in the morning before work, and I race with my dad. We have a race car team and enjoy doing that. But competition is my stress reliever. So whether it's golf or darts or spades or whatever else, yeah, I just enjoy that. So anytime that I get to play sports is a good time for me.
That is fantastic, and we're so blessed to have you at Rocky Mount and at OIC in particular. You know, we're thrilled that you've been a member of our team. You've been an important member of the team, and what I love about Dr. Bonner, he's a man of the people. You know, and always willing to be seen, talked with. We have great conversations, and Rocky Mount. If you haven't got a chance to meet this brilliant young leader, please find a way to do so. Come on down. You can see him at OIC Family Medical Center. He and his great team of clinical professionals, healthcare professionals will do you right. Your life will get better. I promise you that. I promise you that. They bring great information delivered in a caring, compassionate way, and we do our best to make it affordable for you. Dr. Bonner, as we close out, we just want to remember that on January the 1st, 1863, I'm going to do some reading. Y'all need to know this while we celebrate Juneteenth. Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation stating that Black people in Confederate states, and these were all the Southern states, were no longer enslaved. Southern enslavers did not want to obey the proclamation, and therefore, people who were living in slavery, and that was Black people in particular, had to escape the Union states to experience freedom. It wasn't easy, but they didn't give up. Over 200,000 Black soldiers joined the Union Army. In fact, former Senator Toby Fitch's grandfather was one of the Black men who recruited formerly enslaved Black men to join the Union Army, and they started winning fights. I love it. And that's what helped defeat the Confederate Army. January 31st, 1865, Congress approved the 13th Amendment declaring slavery illegal. However, racism and hate did not end. Free Blacks created new schools and new churches, new businesses, and new farms in order to help build a better life. That period of time was called Reconstruction. Blacks voted during elections and added 16 Blacks to Congress and 2 Blacks to the Senate. And 2 of those individuals from the House of Representatives in North Carolina were from Rocky Mount. June 19, 1866 is when General Granger went to Galveston, Texas, with about 2,000 soldiers, most of them Black, and enforced General Order Number 3, stating that enslaved people were free. This is a good 2.5 years, 1.5 years after slavery was ended officially by President Lincoln. Juneteenth was initially called Jubilee Day, and it was it was a day to support freedom and equality of Black people. Juneteenth means June 19th, and then the rest is history. We lived through Jim Crow. We fought back. We lived through the second Reconstruction, which was after Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, civil rights movement pushed through the 70s and the 80s with affirmative action. And now we're going through another vestige of oppression that's formalizing itself as James Crow Esquire, so we're rolling back affirmative action, anti-woke, anti-diversity, equity, inclusion. We see these laws being enacted. We see extremely fringe politicians speaking things that we haven't heard in near 60, 70 years, wanting to roll the hands of time back. So we take our freedom seriously. And I do want you to know in 2021, President Joe Biden signed Bill 475 that declared Juneteenth a federal holiday. So we are celebrating this holiday today, saying that we take our freedom seriously and we have the freedom to be healthy, don't we, Dr. Bonner? We have the freedom to make good choices, prioritize our physical bodies, our safety, our peace of mind, our joy. And I thank you, Dr. Bonner, for all that you're doing to help people find their joy and live healthily. And thank you for being a great influence in Rocky Mount and a great influence in the OIC family. And I hope you'll join me again for more Express Yourself on the Air. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
You enjoy Indianapolis. Bring back pictures of some great feat that we can celebrate together, okay?
Sounds good.
And thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in with me, your host, Reuben Blackwell, Express Yourself with Choice FM. We have Good Talk on Wednesdays. Come back next week for more. So I'm going to say hello and goodbye and happy Juneteenth. To celebrate this day, spend some time with people you love. Find your joy today. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Choice FM is live at 5.
But it's like this, the South got something to say. That's all I got to say.
Reuben Blackwell and Express Yourself on Choice FM.
It's time to celebrate freedom, art, and love. The Legends Gala. The Legends Gala at Cam Raleigh Museum. For